everyone, it's Bob McCraney with Texas Pride Realty Group, brokered by HomeSmart Stars. Today we're talking about Packed Up. We are talking about a group of people who are concerned about the Code of Ethics, specifically Article 10 of the Code of Ethics, and the non-discrimination clause of the Realtor Code of Ethics, which says we will not discriminate against groups of people, and it describes all the different groups. We are also concerned then that the Realtor PAC, RPAC, then funds people who want to dismantle all the protections for the exact same people that we say in our other document that we protect. So we're talking today about some things that we're doing, and it's going to be a free-flowing conversation. So hope you enjoy the podcast today. With that said, I want to kind of jump in on to some things we're doing on our website. This is the packedup.org site. We have been profiling different candidates across the U.S. who have been endorsed by and funded by RPAC and who are in violation of Article 10 of the Code of Ethics. We're trying to find people across the U.S., and almost every state has this as you know, a possibility here, that are in violation of Article 10. They are anti-immigrant, they're anti-women, they're anti-African American, they're anti-gay, they're anti-trans. So if we're going to have these politicians be funded by the Realtor PAC, we feel that the Realtor PAC should ask questions about specifically their impression of Article 10 that we have to live by. Our money should go to fund our own code of ethics and not be used alternatively. I want to throw the floor open to some of the folks we have here who are all great realtors around the United States and other parts of the world. Leslie, let me call on you for a second. What do you?
So Bob and I have been going on this for years. We started with the Texas Real Estate Political Action Committee. We wanted to just hold them accountable. So, you know, if we can't discriminate in our business that way, then the Political Action Committee, which is filled with realtors who are part of the National Association of Realtors, they should not be able to put their money towards put money from those PACs towards candidates that legislate hate. And we always got pushback, or we were always told, you know, gay marriage is a social issue. And, you know, when we pointed out that it's not a social issue, it comes with property rights, they would push back. They never wanted to talk to us. They always wanted to take it to the side. We can talk about that on the side. Because, you know, I'm the person that's going to bring it up in a room full of people. I'm the person that's going to push right there, and I'm not going to take it, and we're not going to have that conversation on the side. So we always got all this pushback about how they didn't want, how it wasn't like that. When we showed them that it was like that, they would just kind of dismiss us completely. So that's kind of where this all kind of grew from, is us trying to change just the Political Action Committee in our own state. And it just kind of grew from there. And now we want to hold every Political Action Committee, Realtor Political Action Committee accountable. And we're going to start at the top with the National Association of Realtors Political Action Committee, the RPAC.
Right. So one of the things you'll hear is that, you know, RPAC is all driven by local pick committees, and you should get involved locally. And there's a flaw to that logic. One, if you try to get involved locally, especially in a red state, you will be outvoted. And to get onto the committee, they review your endorsements, your donations. So you have to fund your own disenfranchisement just to even get on the committee. And then you'll be outvoted, and you will still have to fund people who want to break your marriages, make you an illegal person, all sorts of horrible things. The other thing is that when they say it's all local and national doesn't get involved, that's actually not true. We discovered a rule that says if the National Association and the local association disagree on an endorsement, neither side endorses. So if there is somebody who's truly heinous, that is truly against our rights, National could step in and nullify the endorsement and keep it from happening. So this is kind of a way for them to kind of gaslight us and say, well, you know, National has no control. It's all done at the Georgia level or the Arizona level. We couldn't possibly, and that's not true. They could nullify if they wanted to reach down and do this. Now, NAR has diversity groups. Help me out here. I can't remember all the diversity groups. I'm sorry, it just flew out of my head.
The Women's Council of Realtors, the Hispanic There are several of them. There are several of them
Non-rep,
that they have.
NAREB,
I'm sorry,
ARIA.
Rodney, help me with this, please. It flew out of my head.
So NAREP is the National Association of Hispanic Realtors. NAREB is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And then ARIA is the Asian Real Estate Association.
Okay.
And then you have the
And then,
Women's Council on top of that too, plus the Alliance then.
right, right. And the Association of Real Estate Brokers, I believe, is the African American
Correct.
associate, which if you look at the history of NAR, the reason that they had a separate organization is that NAR for years historically would not admit somebody of color. And they use the same ideology of, well, national's not keeping them out, just none of the local groups will let them in. And we only depend on the local groups to decide. This is the exact same strategy they used when they wanted power up until the 1970s, when Congress passed something called the Fair Housing Act. And then they had to change Article 2. There was actually an article of the Code of Ethics that said we could not introduce a person of race or nationality into a neighborhood who would be a disturbance to that neighborhood. That was Article 5 for many years, and then they pushed it to Article 20 something. And then in the 70s, they got rid of that horrible article and came up with Article 10, which is their non-discrimination, which matched what Congress passed in the 70s. So if you look back historically at all the versions of the Code of Ethics, NAR does not have a strong history with civil rights. And now we have Article 10, which is great. And they pull it out during, Pride Month, Women's History Month, Black History Month. They pull it up and make lots of PR about it, and then fund everybody behind the scenes that wants to dismantle this. And they have this side group now that is not getting a lot of discussion, which is the American Property Owners Alliance. American Property Owners Alliance seems to be, according to New York Times, a dark money fund that is wholly run from the NAR headquarters with NAR people. And those funds go pretty much 80% to conservative PACs and causes. If you're talking to somebody about RPAC, they will say, well, we give to both parties equally. We're Democrat and Republican, which again is another distraction because it's not about party for us. It's about not funding hate. Not funding if you had a Democrat who was anti-trans, anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-what, we would not want them funded either. It's not about party. It's about not funding the disenfranchisement of our organizations and our people. And Leslie's absolutely right. Marriage has multiple property laws attached to it. If they reverse Lawrence v. Texas, gay men become immediately illegal again in I think 7 or 8 states. Texas being one of them. Rodney, I'm not sure about Georgia, but if the sodomy laws get put back into power, can a person who's now an illegal person hold a real estate license?
Well, let's step back for a minute, back to RPAC and the National Association of Realtors and the dark money fund that they have. One of the things they tell us, you don't have to donate to RPAC. You don't have to donate to TREAPAC or whatever political action committee it is that for your state. And that's right, you don't have to. And that way we are not funding hate. However, to be a member of the National Association of Realtors, we have to pay our dues. And now they're using those dues to fund that dark money. So when they say, well, you're not paying, if you're not donating, you're not paying for it, that's no longer true. Our dues are now going to fund hate against us, against people of color, against the LGBTQ plus community, against women. So they can say it's not, but we know it is. And they're not abiding by their own code of ethics. And that's where it becomes a bigger problem. Now they're trying to sneak the money through, and it's not just here's they gave $50. What was it? How much money do we think they did, Bob? Did we verify?
I don't remember that. I'd have to look at back the New York Times article, but it was millions of
Yeah,
dollars.
it was millions of dollars.
And maybe the other realtors can talk to this who are on the call here. When I do my renewal, I'm a licensee in 3 states. When I do my renewal, there's always an option to donate. And that option is always pre-selected on, and you have to go toggle it off. And let's say that you have to go back and maybe your credit card number, you need to update it or whatever. When you come back in, it's toggled back on again. Just for no reason. That just keeps coming back on that, oh, you should donate your fair share of $35, $45, $55. That's not necessary for us to be members of the National Association of Realtors, but they keep asserting it over and over. So when they say the RPAC is not us, and they shouldn't be held to our standards. Well, then why do we donate so much to RPAC? Why are we drummed over the head to donate to RPAC? If our phone goes off in class, we're given a $35 yellow card. We got to make a donation to RPAC to stay in the class. If we do anything, everything is predicated on getting RPAC donations. So if this is the case, why? And the other question is, if they're not really the PAC, why are they upset that we're upset with the PAC? Because if we were upset with Jerry's Kids or the Shriners Association, NAR would not care. But if we're upset with our PAC, they care. So the idea that they're not the same disappears. Rodney, could you tell us a little bit about things in Atlanta and in Georgia?
So I don't know as much on the realtor side of everything, so I'm on the mortgage side. So it's hard for me to speak about that. But in the mortgage industry as a whole, we don't really have anything related to RPAC or anything like that. I mean, you have Mortgage Bankers Association who will go and basically try to get legislation sponsored, but not the same degree that the realtor side does on that part.
What about the state laws when it comes to property rights in Georgia?
What about it?
Well, does marriage give them property rights?
I mean, Georgia's not a community property state
Okay.
from that perspective.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so we're one of the ones who, if you're single, you can be on title with anybody. If you're not legally married, you can be on title with anybody. And basically, somebody who's married can be on title with anybody else. I mean, when it gets into a title perspective, VA requires or will only allow a spouse to be on title. FHA only allows a defined family member to be on title if they're not a borrower on the loan. So those are the two distinctions there. But from there, anybody else can be on title for any other loan program. So you can have two people who are unmarried who can be on title together for any other loan program, and that's perfectly fine. There's no automatic property rights or anything like that just because someone gets married in Georgia. It's totally and distinct on that part of it.
But when it comes to certain types of loans, if they're not, quote, family or married, they can't be on the title.
Correct. So like if you had, say, a veteran who was not married, their partner could not be on title because they're not a spouse. That's just a VA requirement.
And what do you have you thought about what would happen, let's say, if marriage equality went away? What happens to those loans? What happens to the VA or an FHA loan if no they're currently on the title? What happens at that point?
Nothing on. So for everything that has closed, it's status quo. The only thing that would be impacted if it went away would be VA loans, because VA does require a spouse.
Yeah.
To be, if you're a borrower and to be on title, you have to be a legal spouse. Now, if you remember back before it became a national thing, there were some states where we could do VA loans and recognize the local marriage. I don't remember the specifics of it because that's been 10 plus years ago. But I know that we did have some little caveats on that where the state recognized it. But Georgia, of course, wasn't one of them. So it never was a thing here. Now I'm licensed in multiple states, so it does vary from state to state too on some of these regulations about who can be on title and who's required to be on title.
So one thing we want to watch going forward is the next election cycle coming up. We can't go back and undo the endorsements that have happened. We have a two-pronged strategy, and we're working with some of our friends at the Alliance to talk about them, which is what we're doing, and to talk to them. We want to have a conversation with RPAC. We have always wanted to be in dialogue and in concert with RPAC to work with them on this. What we faced is the constant othering and pushing us out and pushing us aside so that they don't want to deal with us. We would like to work with the other diversity groups in NAR and talk about the intersectionality of everything that's going on with our groups and these endorsements. And so we are trying to get their attention and to get them into a meaningful dialogue, not just, a dismissive, push us aside and don't really deal with it. We'll get back to you in a year or two. We want to have a dialogue about where our money is going and how this process basically keeps endorsing people who want to disenfranchise the very diversity groups that you say are welcome at the table. So that's what we've been talking about today. Does anybody want to say anything before we wrap up this part of the conversation? John?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out our state PAC in North Carolina actually sent out an email yesterday about this sort of topic. It was the I Back the PAC Day. So if you back the PAC on your social media. But what I found interesting at the very bottom, they have this disclaimer, which all, PACs have to put on there. Two sentences basically harken back to what you said. It's suggested donations. The other ones are interesting because it says NAR and the state and local associations will not favor or disadvantage any member because of the amount contributed or a decision not to contribute. You may refuse to contribute without reprisal. Has there been reprisals for some of y'all in the past from your local associations? I think so.
Admonishment, absolutely. Like
yes,
they will
whatever
take you to
term you
task
want to
for not
use.
donating.
Right. So they will. They know who you are, and if you cause enough problems for them, they're going to point you out. That is a reprisal. That is retribution for not donating to their PAC voluntarily.
Yes, Corey.
Wouldn't you also agree that reprisal is something that is easily identified in the outcomes that we just discussed? So we just discussed the fact that all of our fees are going to disenfranchise us. And that, I think, is absolutely a type of reprisal. I realize it doesn't necessarily relate to the PAC because it's not a PAC donation. But again, they're trying to extricate these two entities that are very intrinsically tied. So I think that that's something that we could probably discuss as well.
Right.
I think, Corey, that the thing you're talking about is there's, just like in law, there's implicit and explicit. And a lot of this stuff is done sort of like sleight of hand, but it really is meant to be a reprisal. That's what's happening.
And it can affect, and by not donating, it can affect, getting committee assignments at your local association. It can affect all kinds of things that go on at your local association level that, well, this person donates, and you can't tell me they don't take that into consideration. Because I looked one years ago, I wanted to see and I've never applied to a committee and didn't want to be a part of it anyway, but I looked to see who was getting the assignments. Every one of them had donated to TreePack because it was public knowledge. When you donate, it's public information. Every one of them donated to TreePack. So you can't tell me it doesn't happen. And I know others, there were certain assignments I knew that others had asked for and they did not get.
So Jason, can you tell us a little bit about marriage in Ohio and what's happening with RPAC there?
Well, I believe like many of us have talked and like the presentation shows, marriage equality is housing related, particularly in states like Ohio. I believe there might only be 2 states left with the type of dower rights that we have. But in Ohio, if you're married, your spouse automatically has ownership of your real estate. So if someone gets married today, their spouse owns their property with them, whether they bought it before or after the marriage. And should something happen to one of them, it automatically goes to the spouse first. So there are absolutely real estate implications and protections. While you can make a lot of arguments against the concept of dower rights for states that have it or some version of it, it does protect the spouse after death of a partner. So when RPAC says that that's a social issue, that's not a property rights issue, it's absolutely not the case. And I would guess that even in states without dower, which gives the property to the spouse. I would guess that there's still major issues after death, of what happens in the case where not, where somebody doesn't have their real estate set up in, wills and trusts, and however they have it set up to protect their family. Locally, like in our state, RPAC, I've served on, Columbus Realtors is a nearly 10,000 member, mega MLS, mega board. And I've served on the board of directors. So I've been directly involved. For many years, I gave to RPAC because it was, if you want a seat at the table, kind of, you must give. And in recent years, I have refused to give, even the, making sure I deliberately uncheck the checkbox on my annual renewal, so that I think that the recommended donation is only $16 or something very small, but it's still a dollar amount. And when you have 10,000 members, that adds up pretty quickly. But I've had all of the talking points that have been brought up in these meetings. I've experienced, we give 50% to Democrats and 50% to Republicans. Well, they're doing that calculation based on bodies, right? They may have given to 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans, but they made 10 Democrats share $1,000, and those 10 Republicans got 30,000 each. That those 50% goes to each side of the aisle is not accurate when it comes to total investment, number one. Number two, they continuously say, this actually came up this week in one of my trainings with my newer employees, not employees, newer agents. They were in an RPAC meeting because they're on that committee, because it is a requirement if you work for my brokerage that you are involved in our industry. So everyone at my company serves on a committee or attends a committee in some way every year. So one of my newer agents is on RPAC, and they were asking, like, why aren't we getting more people to donate? Why aren't we, what can we do to get more people to donate? And she said that her response to them was, tell us the truth. And I had never had a conversation with her about this organization. She's heard me rant about things. And she basically clarified, like, you sit here and tell us that we do not endorse any specific candidates, that we only endorse personal property rights, and we only lobby for that. Yet I'm out here trying to get people to donate, and I'm having people bark back at me because they have firsthand knowledge that there are candidates that are supported by our organization. And they point blank said, no, that's not accurate. So, like every other state, like everyone's talking, no one will provide an actual itemization of who the money went to. No one will provide an actual itemization of how those dollars are spent, and nobody wants to hear anything about property rights when it comes to LGBTQ plus folks. So that's my story. I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Were you also saying a few minutes ago that you've seen the same tactics of having the pre-selected button just tend to stay on, and being told that if you want to go to the class, if you came back 3 minutes late, that you got to contribute $35 to stay in that sort of thing? Those little tricks that they do to get extra money.
I'm very involved across the board. I just came back from 4 days in Cleveland for our state, the Ohio Realtors conference, annual conference. And yes, in meetings, someone's phone rang multiple times and they were told $50 donation to RPAC. That's your penalty.
Wow.
Now, whether they enforced it or they actually did it, I don't know, but it's always brought up.
So just so anybody watching this knows, federal law is you cannot make a donation compulsory. So if somebody's phone is ringing in class, I would suspect it would be a violation. I'm not an attorney. We do have some attorneys who are our friends, but I don't think that would be a voluntary donation. If I had to pay $50 to stay in class because my phone chirped, that's not voluntary. You're telling me I'm going to be thrown out of a realtor class if I don't do this, or I'm not going to graduate from the realtor class if I don't give $50 to the that's not voluntary in my mind. So if somebody gets in that situation, I would urge them to make a little fuss about it and say, this is not within federal law to compel me to make a donation to this PAC.
And by the
Yeah,
way, newer agents
I will
don't
say
know
that I've never seen someone kicked out of a class for it, but I definitely has on many occasions been brought up as this is your penalty.
And newer agents don't know that. When newer agents, because I've done a lot of continuing education, in environments where there are newer agents there, they don't know. They think
Right.
it's a have to, and they don't like it when I quickly point out, yeah, we can't force that. Because they don't want to have that conversation. They don't tell them they don't have to. They just say, hey, and this is what, and if phone goes off, that's a $5 donation to TreePack, or if you do this, it's this much dollar donation to TreePack. They never say you don't have to do it, but they also don't say you have to. They just say, oh, that's a $5 donation, and the newer agents just don't know. And so
Right.
I'm always the one running that funding in those classes, because I will be the first one to point out that they don't have to do it. So
Right.
The
Okay,
other thing
Richard,
that I
we
thought
have,
was interesting was they were soliciting folks to be what's the term? The political liaison for our elected officials. What's the RPAC term for that?
I'm not sure.
Political advice coordinators or whatever they're called in Ohio. And I have one of my agents is one. I made a comment to someone who's very heavily involved, and I was like, oh, I mean, are there any folks in my district that are not connected? I would be open to doing that. And their immediate response to me was, well, you just said that you don't give to RPAC. You have to give to RPAC if you want to participate. I'm like, I don't think you can force me to donate to participate.
you have
And
that in
they,
writing?
no, that was an informal conversation. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think that's an actual policy. And I believe that because I'm a political coordinator, I think they're called. I know there are other political coordinators who are not donors or big donors. But anyway, the even if it's not a policy, when people are thinking that way, when there's when that's the general consensus, folks who don't know better, like I barked back. I was like, well, if I'm not going to give until these other things are addressed, but I'm happy to participate in, make sure our collective interests are represented. I think the reality is they know the kinds of things that I would be concerned about, but regardless, it just struck me as it's just everywhere. It's everything, every single meeting, every single event, there's an ask to give, and that would be okay if it represented everyone.
Yes. Okay, so I want to recognize we have Richard Woods here. Richard, tell us who you are in the world. We know who you are, but tell the people watching who you are in, not just in our world that we love you, but in the world of LGBTQ leadership.
Thank you very much, Bob. I am now, as I was sworn in yesterday, the current vice president of the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance and president-elect for 2027. So I'm happy to be here. I think, as we have talked before, Bob, and you've had numerous talks with Tommy Worley, who was our, she hasn't been sworn in yet, but she'll be sworn in today, our next president of the Alliance. We are finding this great alignment between the two. Not that we cross paths necessarily all the time, but we work in conjunction with one another, and that's what I would love to see continue. I think you, Melissa, and Tommy did some sort of presentation I was unable to attend, which was really cool. I heard about advocacy versus activism. We see our role more as the advocate part of it, staying within our lane, but turning to our brothers, sisters, and others within our community to align with and say, look, we want these things pushed forward as well. We want a seat at the table. We are getting a seat at the table in some respects. We were, as you all probably know, or if you don't know, we had a one-on-one meeting with NAR leadership prior to the June legislative meetings to voice our opinion, our strong concerns. Jay-Z spoke up quite loudly about the proposed and ultimately adopted edits to 10.5. So we're going to continue to do that. I just spoke at a panel here at our CAR Reimagine, which is our state conference. It was on fair housing, how to get a unified voice. And I just told people, you know, our aspect of it is, and from the Alliance's aspect is, if you want to challenge something that you believe is unfair, like RPAC or 10.5, then you've got to speak out and speak up. And I think that's been your mantra for quite some time, Bob, and I appreciate that so much. And we can do it on the advocacy side. I think that where we're beneficial is we built those relationships, and now they're seeing us out there on these panels. I don't, if I have the time, I don't ever turn down a panel because I want to be present and in the room no matter where I am. And I think that that's the most important thing. Also, filing complaints for RPAC violations, or if you're getting fined and it's telling you $50 fee towards the RPAC in your state or with your association, you know, the loudest voice in the room may not be the most appreciated or the most welcome, right? But it's certainly the one that gets heard. And so we're going to advocate for that.
So can you help us have a meeting between ourselves and the other diversity groups to talk about the intersectionality of this? And can you help us get a meeting with National RPAC, who could insert some rules and nullify donations that are in direct violation of Article 10?
I will encourage that with Tommy, but Tommy would be the lead on this. But we'll definitely have a meeting. We'll have our first board meeting next week of this new administration, so to speak, so I can bring it up during the board meeting and see what we can do. Certainly, yeah. I mean, if it's
We just
within
want
our
a conversation.
ability, yeah. And as I got elevated through the Alliance, and now I'm on more diversity groups and things like that, I can certainly tell people that, you know, look, we have not the Alliance itself, but there is another organization out there that is interested in speaking with you. How do we get you connected? So certainly I'll use whatever influence I have to get you to the right people.
There have been in Collin County Association, which I'm a member of, which is now part of Metro Texas Association of Realtors, they had Miss Tree Pack contests. They would have bad drag. I mean, not if I brought real drag queens, everybody in the room would freak out. But they had the straight man in a dress sort of drag, so everybody could laugh and guffaw at them and raise money that disenfranchised the LGBTQ community. And I eventually, after the second time I saw this happen, I basically told them, if you do this, I will have picketers on your doorstep Monday morning. This has to stop. You cannot use a trope, which is such a strong, you know, factor in our community to mock our community and disenfranchise us. And they did. They changed it, but they don't understand what their actions do. And when we bring it to them and say, your actions are directly impacting us, they glaze over because the PAC is their power. It's more important to them than the association, than the MLS, or than the code of ethics. It's their power. And when we talk about, why are you endorsing these people that we've profiled on our site, they go, well, we have to endorse a person we know would win. I mean, in a red state, you couldn't possibly endorse. It's not going to change until we change. And that's what we're here to advocate for. Is we want to see change, and we want to be part of the change. But until we're allowed at the table, until we get access to the people in the room, we can't get anyone to make that change. So all we can do is stand here and talk about it.
And by the way, to get access to them, what do they want us to do? Donate. That's they
be part of the problem.
They want us to buy a seat at the table, just so they can still put us in the same position as before, where we don't really have a say.
Okay, everybody. Thank you for being on this podcast. And we'll do another one in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to keep churning out content, and hopefully you'll help me share it and get it around.